I want you to picture something with me for a second. Just visualize this scene.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
It is a warm summer evening. You are standing in your kitchen, and you are taking a very sharp knife and, slicing into this vibrant, perfectly sun-ripened red tomato.
Oh, yeah. That's a great visual.
Right. And you toss those thick wedges into a wide bowl. Maybe you tear up some fresh basil leaves over the top, pour a heavy, generous drizzle of rich olive oil, and finish it with a little pinch of flaky sea salt.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Visually and aromatically, I mean, it is about as simple and classic as food gets.
Exactly. And it's a beautifully familiar scene. Millions of people are doing that exact preparation in their kitchens around the world every single day.
Completely taking the underlying biology of that meal for granted, honestly.
I certainly always have.
Yeah.
But what if I told you that unassuming red sphere sitting on your cutting board isn't just a pleasant salad ingredient?
It really isn't.
No. What if I told you it is actually a miniature, highly sophisticated pharmaceutical powerhouse?
Right, which sounds wild, but it's true.
It is. So today, we're going on a deep dive into a really fascinating source document. It's a health script we've got our hands on, titled Tomatoes Lycopene Podcast Script .docx.
Such a great document to dig into.
It really is. Our mission today is to unpack this single document to reveal the hidden life of tomatoes. Okay, let's unpack the idea that is simple, everyday kitchen staple holds these incredibly complex chemical secrets that can literally alter how our cells age.
Yeah, it's almost like hiding science fiction in plain sight.
Sitting right there in the produce aisle next to the cucumbers.
It really is hiding in plain sight. And, well, what's fascinating here is the core subject at the center of all this biological activity.
Which is this crimson champion, right?
Exactly, a crimson champion called lycopene. We really need to explore what this specific compound is, how it functions as a microscopic shield, and I think most surprisingly...
Oh, the surprises in this document are huge.
Right. How almost all of our baseline cultural assumptions about how we're supposed to consume it are just, well, totally backward.
By the time we finish this deep dive today, I promise you, you will never look at a humble jar of marinara sauce or, a simple slice of pizza the exact same way again.
Definitely not.
So let's start right at the surface of the fruit. Let's just start with the visual. Why is a tomato red?
It's a great question to start with.
Because according to the research we are looking at, it is not just some evolutionary trick for aesthetic appeal. It isn't just trying to look pretty on the vine to attract bugs or birds or whatever.
No, that striking, rich red color is functionally doing something on a molecular level.
So walk us through that. That color comes directly from that specific pigment we just mentioned, right?
Yeah, lycopene.
Yeah.
And to truly understand lycopene, you really have to look at its family tree, so to speak.
Okay, it's family tree.
Right. It belongs to a broader family of chemical compounds known as carotenoids.
Carotenoids, which I feel like I've heard of before.
You probably have. You are probably familiar with that chemical family because it is the exact same group of compounds that gives carrots their bright orange color.
Oh, sure. And sweet potatoes, too.
Exactly. Sweet potatoes get their deep, rich hue from carotenoids as well.
Okay, but the text draws a very sharp distinction here between lycopene and its famous cousin, beta-carotene.
A very important distinction, yeah.
Because normally, when we hear about carrots or sweet potatoes, we are taught about beta-carotene and how the body takes that compound and magically converts it into vitamin A.
Right, to help with things like eyesight, usually.
Right. But lycopene is different.
Very different. The body absolutely uses beta-carotene as a precursor to vitamin A. Lycopene, however, just flat out refuses to do that.
It just won't convert.
It refuses to convert. Instead, it stubbornly maintains its original chemical identity. It acts purely, 100%, as a heavy-duty antioxidant.
Just a dedicated antioxidant.
Exactly. And to grasp why that single-minded focus matters so much, we have to talk about what it's actually fighting against inside your body.
The bad guys.
Right. We need to talk about oxidative stress.
Okay, so these are like the microscopic security guards of the body. Because every single day our cells are under constant, unrelenting attack, right?
You have to imagine these things called free radicals.
Right, free radicals. We hear that buzzword all the time.
We do, but what are they? They are essentially highly unstable, frantic molecules.
Frantic is a good word for it.
They are unstable because they are physically missing an electron, and they are just desperate to find a replacement.
And where do they come from? The text says they are generated by the pollution we breathe, the psychological and physical stress we endure.
UV radiation from the sun, too?
UV radiation, yes.
Yeah.
And even just normal everyday metabolic processes, like the simple act of your body breaking down food creates them.
That's right. You can't avoid them.
The visual the text uses is fantastic, by the way. It describes these free radicals bouncing around your body like pinballs.
Yes, just ricocheting off your internal structures, causing absolute chaos.
And when they hit something, they do profound damage, right? Because they are literally ripping electrons away from healthy tissue.
Exactly. They damage your DNA, they degrade your structural proteins, and they tear holes in the delicate membranes surrounding your cells.
Which sounds terrifying.
It is. This whole chaotic, destructive process is oxidative stress. This is exactly what drives chronic aging and disease.
It is cellular wear and tear on a massive scale.
It really is. And there is a very specific, highly aggressive type of free radical mentioned in our research.
Oh, the singlet oxygen molecule.
Yes, the singlet oxygen molecule. This is one of the most reactive and damaging types of free radicals in existence.
Like a molecular wrecking ball.
A perfect description. Because of its extreme instability, it doesn't just bounce, it crashes into cellular walls and rapidly degrades them.
And this is where our Crimson Champion comes in.
This is exactly where lycopene steps onto the battlefield. Lycopene is uniquely equipped to neutralize these highly reactive singlet oxygen molecules.
To give you a sense of scale on how powerful lycopene is at neutralizing these specific threats, its antioxidant capacity is twice as high as beta-carotene.
Which is huge.
But wait, it is a staggering 10 times higher than alpha-tocopherol.
Yeah, that number is wild.
Alpha-tocopherol being a form of vitamin E, right? Which we typically view as like the gold standard for antioxidant protection.
Right. People take vitamin E supplements specifically for that.
And lycopene is 10 times stronger.
10 times stronger.
But it isn't just the sheer strength that caught my attention. It's the geography of where it does its fighting. Like where it actually sits in the body.
Yeah, the location is key. When you consume lycopene, it physically embeds itself right into the lipid membranes of your cells.
It moves into the very architecture of your biology.
Exactly. When we talk about a lipid membrane, we are talking about the fatty, dual-layered outer wall of the cell.
Like the perimeter fence.
Yes. Because lycopene is a fat-soluble molecule, it slips right into that fatty wall and anchors itself there.
Okay, I want to make sure I am visualizing this defense system properly. Are free radicals essentially like microscopic rust, just slowly eating away at a car over time?
That's a really good way to picture it.
And so lycopene acts as this heavy-duty protective wax that you buff right into the clear coat.
That is a phenomenal analogy. Yes. Just like rust slowly oxidizes and compromises the structural integrity of a steel frame, oxidative stress slowly weakens the structural integrity of your cells.
Wow, okay.
By anchoring itself into that fatty outer layer, lycopene isn't just, floating around in the bloodstream randomly hoping to bump into a free radical.
It has literally built itself into the wall.
It's reinforcing the perimeter. It's intercepting that molecular wrecking ball before it can breach the cell and damage the DNA inside.
So what does this all mean for us, for you listening, going about your daily life, just trying to stay healthy?
Right.
We have this incredibly powerful cellular shield sitting right there in the produce aisle, just waiting for us. The natural next step, the entirely logical question, is how do we get as much of this heavy-duty wax into our system as possible?
And this brings us to what I think is the wildest, most paradigm-shifting part of our deep dive today.
It completely blew my mind.
It fundamentally challenges the great dietary myth of our time.
The myth of the raw vegetable.
Yes.
Because we have all been completely, thoroughly conditioned by wellness culture to believe that raw, untouched, right out of the earth produce is always superior.
Oh, definitely.
You eat the raw, crunchy salad, and you skip the processed, cooked stuff in the jar. That is like the golden rule of clean eating.
We are constantly told that heating things destroys the delicate enzymes and the nutritional value.
Right, but according to the data in front of us, when it comes to tomatoes and lycopene, that rule is completely flipped on its head.
Totally flipped.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Processing the tomato, like actually cooking it down, actually makes it biologically better for you.
This raises an important question about how we casually evaluate the healthiness of our food based on current trends rather than, actual biochemistry.
Right, because we tend to assume thermal energy cooking is inherently destructive.
But with tomatoes, thermal energy is actually the master key that unlocks the nutrient.
I have to admit, I've spent years feeling a little guilty reaching for a jar of pasta sauce instead of, making a fresh raw tomato salad.
A lot of people feel that way.
Let's break down the mechanics of why the cooked version is superior. If I just bite into a raw tomato like an apple,
Yeah.
what is actually happening in my digestive tract? Why am I not getting that cellular shield?
Well, you are getting some baseline nutrition, of course, but you are barely absorbing any lycopene.
Why not?
Because in a raw tomato, the lycopene is trapped. It is tightly bound inside these incredibly rigid, microscopic plant cell walls.
Okay.
The human digestive tract simply isn't robust enough to break all of those tough walls down on its own during the digestion process.
So a lot of it just passes right through you.
Exactly. But the second issue is chemical. The lycopene itself exists in a very specific structural shape in its raw form. Chemists refer to this as a trans-isomer configuration.
Okay, let's keep this highly visual for the listener. If I'm looking at a trans isomer through a microscope, what does it look like?
Think of it like a rigid, straight, flat stick.
A flat stick.
Because of that straight, inflexible shape, it is very difficult for your gut to absorb it. In the watery environment of your digestive tract, your body uses bile salts to emulsify nutrients.
Emulsify them so they can be absorbed.
Right, so they can be packaged into these tiny delivery spheres called micelles.
Micelles, got it.
But a rigid, flat stick clumps up. It refuses to pack neatly into those spherical micelles.
Ah, like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it can't be packaged properly, it can't be shuttled across the biological gates of your intestinal walls.
But then we introduce the stoves. We take that raw tomato and we apply heat. We stew it, we roast it, we crush it down, and simmer it slowly into a thick tomato paste, or a rich soup, or a marinara sauce.
And the research points out that two distinct, almost magical things happen when you apply that thermal energy.
First, the heat acts like a microscopic sledgehammer, right?
Exactly.
Right.
It physically breaks down those tough, rigid cellular walls of the plant, suddenly releasing all that trapped lycopene.
It completely frees the compound from its cellular prison.
But the second thing heat does is the true biochemical marvel here. The thermal energy actually changes the molecular structure of the lycopene itself.
It shapeshifts.
It really does. It takes that rigid, straight, trans isomer and it physically bends it. It forces it to reorganize into what chemists call a cis isomer.
And this bent shape changes the entire absorption game.
Entirely. The cis isomer is a slightly bent, folded shape. Because of that specific curved geometry, it plays perfectly with those bile salts we mentioned earlier.
So it fits into little spheres now.
The bent molecules pack beautifully into those spherical micelles. Your body can now effortlessly shuttle them to the intestinal wall and absorb them.
It is a perfect biological lock-and-key mechanism that basically only exists because you applied heat.
Precisely.
Okay, just to be totally, absolutely clear on the implications here. If I go to the store and buy a jar of heavily processed tomato paste, or I spend 3 hours slowly simmering a marinara sauce on my stove, I am actually getting significantly more functional nutrition than if I eat a beautiful, fresh heirloom tomato right off the vine.
Yes.
I feel like I have to push back a little here on behalf of anyone listening who is deeply invested in the raw food movement. Because processing a food to make it healthier just sounds so counterintuitive to modern dietary advice.
I know. It actively defies modern marketing trends, but the clinical studies cited in our text leave no room for ambiguity.
They measured this directly, right?
They did. When researchers actually measure the blood levels of lycopene in human subjects, those blood levels spike massively after a person consumes cooked tomato paste or heavily simmered sauce compared to eating the exact same volume of raw tomatoes.
Because the heat does the necessary structural heavy lifting before the food ever enters your mouth.
Exactly.
That is just wild to me. It completely reframes how I look at my pantry. But there's one more vital piece to this absorption puzzle.
Yes, there is.
The fat-soluble factor.
This is the critical final step. As we touched on earlier, lycopene is fat-soluble. It absolutely cannot dissolve in water.
So if you eat a bowl of fat-free tomato soup on an empty stomach,
your body still cannot absorb the lycopene efficiently. It desperately needs a carrier vehicle dietary fat to properly form those micelles and transport the compound into your bloodstream.
So when you drizzle that heavy pour of olive oil over your roasted tomatoes,
yes,
or you simmer your pasta sauce with a pat of rich butter, or maybe you add some grated cheese, avocado oil, or even a side of crushed nuts.
Yeah.
You aren't just adding flavor. You aren't just making it taste good.
You are engineering a biological synergy.
A massive, highly efficient synergy.
Adding that dietary fat supercharges the lycopene absorption by several 100%. It's the literal difference between an expensive nutrient just passing uselessly through your digestive tract and that same nutrient successfully making it into your blood to actually do its job.
Wow. Okay, so we've established what this Crimson Champion is. We know it's a powerful singlet oxygen-neutralizing cell membrane-embedding antioxidant.
It's quite a resume.
It is.
Mm.
And we finally know the scientifically correct way to eat it. Cooked, processed, and paired generously with a healthy fat.
So let's talk about the systemic payoff.
Right, the benefits.
What actually happens inside us once this highly absorbed, bent into shape cis isomer hits the bloodstream?
The document breaks the systemic impact down into three major areas. The first one is foundational, cardiovascular health, which is huge, considering heart disease remains one of the most pressing health concerns globally.
Absolutely. When researchers look at the root structural causes of heart disease, they consistently point to chronic inflammation and a specific process called LDL cholesterol oxidation.
Okay, let's pause and unpack LDL for a second. We always hear the shorthand that LDL is the bad cholesterol.
Right, we hear that all the time.
But simply having LDL cholesterol floating around isn't the entire problem, is it? The crisis starts when that cholesterol gets oxidized by those frantic free radicals we talked about earlier.
Exactly. When they steal an electron from the LDL, it turns into that sticky, dangerous, plaque-forming gunk that physically clogs up the arteries.
And that is the exact mechanism of danger.
It is. The clinical data strongly associates high intakes of lycopene with a notably reduced risk of cardiovascular disease precisely because lycopene acts as a bodyguard for the LDL cholesterol.
A bodyguard. I love that.
Since lycopene is fat-soluble, it travels right alongside the LDL in the bloodstream. It willingly takes the hit from the free radical, neutralizing the threat so the cholesterol itself doesn't become oxidized, sticky plaque.
It's incredible.
Furthermore, it supports endothelial function, maintaining the flexible, healthy inner lining of your blood vessels, which is vital for healthy blood pressure.
It is keeping the physical plumbing of the human heart clean, flexible, and structurally sound. That alone makes the marinara sauce worth it.
Definitely.
But the second major benefit listed in the research really caught me off guard. It shifts from the heart to the skin.
Oh, yes.
The text introduces this phrase, eating your sunscreen.
It's a very provocative, memorable concept.
It is, but let's ground this in reality for a second. If I am eating a warm bowl of tomato soup loaded with olive oil to protect my skin, how does that actually work?
It's a fair question.
Like, if I go to the beach and forget my SPF 50, does the tomato soup stop my shoulders from turning bright red? How does a microscopic molecule swimming around inside my dark internal bloodstream stop a sunburn that's happening on the exterior of my body?
We have to make a very clear distinction here. A bowl of marinara will never replace a topical, physical SPF barrier when you are exposed to direct sunlight.
Okay, good to know.
You still absolutely need sunscreen to block the radiation from hitting the tissue. But here is what the clinical trials reveal. Regular, consistent consumption of lycopene-rich tomato products over time tangibly increases your skin's natural internal defense against UV-induced erythema.
Erythema being the medical term for the redness and inflammation of a sunburn.
Correct. Over wints of regular intake, that lycopene you are absorbing doesn't just stay in your blood, it eventually deposits itself outward, accumulating in the layers of your skin.
This just parks itself there in the tissue.
It parks itself there. When UV radiation from the sun penetrates your skin and generates an explosion of those chaotic free radicals deep within the cellular layers, the lycopene is already waiting there as an internal quencher.
Ah, I see.
It intercepts and neutralizes the free radicals right at the localized site of the damage.
So the topical sunscreen acts as the exterior shield to block the UV, but the lycopene acts as an internal cleanup crew, mopping up the damage from whatever UV radiation actually makes it through to the inside.
Precisely. And the research notes that this internal quenching improves overall skin texture and visibly reduces premature photoaging over time.
That is fascinating.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see a beautiful through line.
How so?
Well, whether we are talking about preventing sticky, oxidized plaque from building up in your arteries or preventing premature photoaging and erythema in your skin, we are not talking about two different magical properties. We are talking about the exact same underlying mechanism. We are talking about combating systemic inflammation and cellular damage at the membrane level. It's one unified story of structural protection.
Which provides a seamless transition into the third major area of systemic impact mentioned in our deep dive Men's Health, specifically regarding the prostate gland.
Yes.
If lycopene is this incredibly effective at fighting systemic inflammation and protecting delicate lipid membranes, It makes sense that it would congregate in tissues that are highly susceptible to oxidative stress.
This is one of the most robust, deeply documented areas of lycopene research available today. For complex biological reasons we are still mapping out, high concentrations of lycopene specifically target and accumulate in prostate tissue.
It just homes in on that specific area of the male body.
It does. Numerous epidemiological studies, which observe large populations over long periods of time, have drawn a very clear, undeniable link.
The link being that diets heavily rich in cooked tomato products lead to a measurably lower incidence of cellular abnormalities in the prostate.
Right.
It actively, aggressively enhances long-term prostate health.
Again, it is that localized cellular shield at work. It neutralizes the reactive oxygen species in the prostate tissue before they can cause the microscopic mutations and DNA damage that eventually lead to larger cellular abnormalities.
It is genuinely astonishing.
Yeah.
Who knew that this humble little item in the produce section, which, botanically speaking, is technically a fruit, not a vegetable, could pack such an absolute wallop of a physiological punch?
It really is an unsung hero of the kitchen.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from the frantic chemistry of singlet oxygen molecules to the geometry of bending transisomers with thermal heat.
We certainly have.
So let's distill all of this down into something highly practical for the listener. Let's do a quick recap of the 3 actionable takeaways for you from today's deep dive.
Number 1, do not shy away from processed cooked tomatoes.
Ugh.
Tomato paste, canned crushed tomatoes, heavy salsas, and slow-simmered marinara sauces are not inferior to raw tomatoes. They are, in fact, nutritional gold mines because that thermal energy, that heat, fundamentally alters the molecular structure and unlocks the lycopene's bioavailability.
Number 2, you must pair those cooked tomatoes with healthy fats.
Crucial step.
Eating them completely fat-free severely limits the benefits. Olive oil, avocado oil, cheese, butter, or nuts. Adding that dietary fat creates the necessary carrier vehicle, the micelles, yet that will dramatically increase how much lycopene actually makes it through your intestinal wall and into your bloodstream.
And number 3 is simply about consistency.
Right, you don't have to go overboard.
You do not need to eat a massive truckload of tomato paste in one single sitting to achieve these protective benefits.
My goodness.
The clinical science shows that just incorporating a serving of cooked tomato products a few times a week is more than enough to achieve and maintain those optimal protective blood lycopene levels.
Just a few times a week.
Yeah.
It's such an incredibly easy, genuinely delicious dietary intervention.
It really is.
But before we wrap up our time together today, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to ponder. Something that wasn't explicitly spelled out in the pages of our source text, but that naturally builds on the profound biology we've just discussed.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We learned today that lycopene actually physically embeds itself into the fatty lipid membranes of your cells to form a structural shield. It really makes you wonder, is the human aging process less about the inevitable chronological ticking of a clock and more about the simple structural integrity of those microscopic lipid walls?
That is a profound, paradigm-shifting way to look at human health. It moves the perspective away from an inevitable passive decline and frames aging as an active structural maintenance issue.
Think about that the next time you sit down to a warm, comforting meal. When you eat a deep bowl of slow-cooked marinara sauce loaded with rich olive oil and crushed garlic, are you not just nourishing yourself in some vague, abstract way?
You're doing real work.
Are you literally, molecule by molecule, sending down the exact architectural reinforcements needed to rebuild the walls of your youth? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. I hope we've given you a compelling reason to think a little differently the next time you are standing in your kitchen, slicing into that perfectly sun-ripened red tomato. Stay curious and take care of yourself.